That is going. All right. And make sure my email and everything's off. Okay. All right. Ready to go here.
Let's
And
do it.
welcome to a new episode of the Creative Brew, giving you insights on your creative journey. Today we have Jay Montero. I hope I said that right. Um,
Yeah.
he is a comic book artist, designer, and athlete. He's also the co-founder of Broken Reality Comics, a up-and-coming indie comic book publishing company, as well as the creator of the indie series Alpha. So, without further ado, like I said, this man is a man of many talents, and so I'm like really interested to sort of pick his brain and sort of see how he operates and maybe give some creative insights and some nuggets for our audience. So without further ado, Jay, I'll let you sort of share your origin story, where you started and where you are now.
Thank you for having me. First things first, I love shows like these. I think they are a great opportunity for everyone in the community. Keeps everyone the whole community healthy. I think like it gives creators like myself and everyone else who's up and coming like an opportunity to just voice on someone else's platform and provide insights on what we have and creates more opportunities in the long run. So first off, I want to say thank you for having me today.
Appreciate it.
Um, the my origin story. So I've created the character Alpha. Man, I wish I had the drawing with me since storage unit. When I was 10 years old. So it's a lot different than what it looks now. Obviously, it has a lot of revisions throughout the years. And it wasn't until I say my junior year of college, it was in the middle of the pandemic lockdown. There was a lot of free time. And I was like, man, I really want to make this comic. I had this idea since I was 10. And one of my friends were like, just do it. I was studying design at the time in college. So I had more or less an idea of how digital art works with Illustrator and Photoshop. I just didn't know how a comic book works. So I went down the rabbit hole. I searched up every YouTube video possible. I think I remember watching like a Tom McFarlane documentary that came out during that time,
Yeah.
which was celebrating Spawn 300.
Yeah.
And then I'm a huge Tom McFarlane fan, like fanatic. Um, so I watched that and I was super pumped, super motivated. And then I was like, okay, I need to figure this out. So I bought my the original copy of Alpha 1 before I remastered it. I drew it traditionally. So everything was done traditionally. So I got the giant art pens and the giant art boards and I had the little thumbnails ready and it took forever to finish. Um, Only because I didn't have all the right materials. Because when I decided to color it, I realized I didn't have a tablet or some type of Wacom at the time. So I did the entire Alpha 1 using my trackpad on my laptop, coloring it. It was very rough.
Wow.
So I drew it traditionally and I scanned it and then I colored it on Photoshop with my laptop on the trackpad dot by dot. And it took me almost about a year to finish. So I started Alpha 1 November 2nd, 2019, and I finished it and launched it on November 2nd, 2020. That's how long it took.
Wow.
That's a bit of my story. Um, During that time, I started growing a little bit, not as much as I wanted, but I found this community on Instagram, which I did not know existed. I thought I was just the only one with an idea who was like, maybe it's not good enough to pitch it to Image or Marvel or DC yet. Let me just like figure it out, right? And I saw this community and I was just flabbergasted. I was like, this is amazing. Started just reaching out for some insights, like a few guys on the page, on the Instagram page that really gave me some help when I first started. Shout out to them. Homebrew Comics, Chris, he lives in North Carolina, and from Victor Comics, Jason Farrow, he lives in Jersey. They really helped me out, figure out new tips and new ideas, and that's where I first got the idea to get myself a tablet. So I bought myself a Wacom during that time, connected to my laptop and it took me about 4 months to do the Alpha 2. Now, during this time, um, there was this giant indie network that was building. It had like over 40 creators, and I joined it at the time, and that's where I met my business partner and co-founder of Broken Reality Comics, Griff from Wales. He's also Legends BRC. He's the creator of Legends series. So during this network, we really like had the opportunity to talk more within creators. So we were discussing ideas and different things and different tips. And that's where I really managed to flourish during that time. This is around March, April of 2021. So me and Griff started talking a lot more during Discord about a potential crossover. I pitched him the idea of crossovers. I was really big into crossovers. I
Yeah.
was like, let's do it. I love it. I love sharing stuff. I don't care about the money. Let's just have fun. And he was like, yeah. And he was like, I'll do you one better. Let's make a whole universe. So we just sat down um for a while, for weeks, and we were just planning out this whole universe and we were looking for people to recruit. So one of those first people, ironically, who was on this show was Ricky.
Mhm.
We pitched it to him. He just said yes, like the first 2 minutes of it, and we were like, yes, let's go. And pretty much the story went like that. And we saw a business opportunity, um, of like maybe we can start something with us, with all of us. We just needed the first thing we needed to figure out was a website. So one of Griff's mates from Wales, he's actually a web developer.
Mhm.
I'm a web designer. I was looking for a web developer to look for a site. He
Yeah.
was looking for a web designer to do all the design aspect of it and the front end.
Mhm.
We sat down for about 4 to 5 months. We made a website from scratch with our own shopping cart, so we don't have to purchase anything external. We were
Nice.
college students, so we didn't have much money to purchase a Shopify at the time.
Yeah.
So we coded it from scratch. We literally looked at the code and we were like, okay, let's figure this out. We did it for like 5 months and then we launched the site around August. And around this time, Alpha 3 came out. So we launched the site. It was called The Expanse at the time, The Expanse Comics. Eventually, we changed the name for it to fit more of the narrative. Um, and from there, we were working on the first crossover comic. So once we started the website and we started the publishing brand within the eight of us, we there was demands to create the crossover comic. So that was in development. And then January hits, we hit the first crossover comic, Broken Realities one, which
Mhm.
had all the main guys who first started and explained more about the universe and the lore and the elder gods and everything about it. And it was the first crossover that we made, I want to say, in this community made since I don't know when, honestly.
Yeah.
It had all 12 of us in it. And it got funded like in a day in Kickstarter. I remember we were under projecting it. We were asking for $500 just to get the book done, and we made $1,000 within like the first few hours. And we were like, "Oh my God, what are we gonna do with this?" So we got the book done. We had wonderful artists, Val and B. Shout out to them. These are colorists, in-house colorists. Val was one of our in-house artists because I didn't have time to draw it during this time. I started working.
Mhm.
Um, I graduated during that time and they did a wonderful job doing Broken Realities 1, which is on the site, guys. That's a little plug. And it explains literally the origin of how everything happened, how Ricky stuff connects with my stuff, how it connects to Griff stuff, how it connects to everyone else's stuff. So it kind of established a little bit of what the universe is and like the multiverse around it, which something I'll get on later on, explain more of the lore.
All right, cool.
And that's kind of my origin story. It was a bit of a roller coaster ride.
So with you, like I said, I am, I'm a my base is in graphic design and branding, so I'm really deep into that. And podcasting was pretty much like a more of an extension of a lot of my ideals and things I want to talk about. But as far as with you, I mean, did you feel like the entry? I mean, obviously there was things you had to learn about creating comics, but coming from the design side, did you feel like maybe from a branding or production level, like you pretty much had more of a shortcut as opposed to like you just starting off from scratch, like, hey, I want to create this comic book and I'm just gonna, do it and see what goes from there. Did you feel like there were still some things, some struggles that you had to deal with as far as like even creating this comic? Because I would assume now with Alpha, did you draw and write that? I wasn't sure if you did all that by yourself or did you have someone like doing some of the coloring or anything else like that. I didn't know if you self created that whole book.
I did everything myself.
Oh wow.
Colored, lettered, written, drawn. It didn't look like this in the beginning.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, to answer your question, same as here. I started with graphic design. I graduated in graphic design from City College of New York. Got a little BFA on it. I've always felt like I had an advantage in branding because at the time, I guess people were looking for designers. But then what I did struggle with, I knew how to draw, but I didn't draw at the level of, that was required to create a 24-page comic, which was my struggle when I first started Alpha, the original Alpha one, before I remastered it. I kind of had to relearn my anatomy a little better, and I thought I knew until you figure out you got to like bend your arm this way if you want to create a fight scene, and it's very hard to do. So I was looking for a lot of references. Um, so that's something I really had to hone and figure out and just practice like hours and hours and hours throughout the day. One advantage as a designer is I was able to take advantage of layouts. So I knew my artwork wasn't at the standard of, let's say, shout out to another friend of mine, Milton. He's creator of Raptor. He's a really phenomenal artist. Like he can draw circles around my anatomy. But something I had an advantage of is I knew how to lay out the page. I knew where to guide your eye, and I used that as an advantage of like to hook the reader more into the story. So I knew I had to really level up on my writing and I had to level up in the layout and the packaging of it. So I really try to set the tone and make things different. That's where I came up with like all the cool subtitles and the hashtags and the or like if you open the first page, it says Broken Reality Comics Presents. Like trying to make it feel more like a cinematic experience
Yeah.
rather than just a comic book.
Yeah.
So I was just looking for different ways to set me apart from everyone else that I can use as an advantage until the artwork started coming along later down the
Yeah.
road.
All right, yeah, it's pretty cool. I know, and like I said, I asked that question because I know I've been trying to develop in the process of trying to develop my own little I'm still trying to figure out if it's going to be like a novel or like a graphic novel. So I'm still up in arms about that, but I know coming from the design level, like I know the look. I know, what I want. But
Hmm.
as far as like doing the interior pages and stuff like that, I'm not. I told my wife like I'm not the best at that. Like I'm really good at, creating the either characters or even the design aspects around it, the feel of it. I'm really good at that. But as far as like me going in and doing actual interior pages, like that's something else completely different altogether.
Yeah,
Um,
it's a different animal.
yeah, yeah. So and even from the writing, I know with writing a page for a comic book is completely different from doing a maybe like a long form book. Did you have challenges with that, or did you feel like that was more or less was that easier for you than trying to, flesh out an entire book? I didn't know if like script writing is just or did you have to like practice at that and get to something to where
Yeah.
you felt like it was really good quality?
Yeah, I had to I definitely done like a bit of creative writing throughout my years, but script writing was very different. Um, so I really had to practice that a little bit. So I've done a couple of minis before I did Alpha 1, just to get the hang of it. And even when I did Alpha 1, it wasn't to the standard where I wanted it. Um, So it was a lot of trial and error during that time and just like reading books about it, watching YouTube videos of like how to lay out your script, how to make it fit the panels, um, the dialogue, et cetera, et cetera. Because I didn't want to make it sound like it was too, for lack of a better word, like corny.
Yeah.
Like I wanted to make it sound natural. So a big tip that I learned actually when I asked somebody, it was like, imagine if you were just having a conversation with someone. That's it. Just write it like that. And then I was like, that was just like the light bulb moment. I was like, you're right. I'm like overthinking it. And then after that, it just made the script writing aspect so much easier. I just more or less figure out, okay, two characters are in a building discussing about X, Y, and Z. If this character is feeling this way and this character is feeling this way, how can I make that conversation happen and just make it organic? And
That's the
that's
first time
kind
I've
of like,
heard something like that. That's actually a pretty good tip.
and that's kind of like one of the big praises I got for Alpha 2 when
Mhm.
I don't know if I want to spoil it. Let's not spoil it. It's been a few years. Alpha and Phantom fought, and he figured out Phantom was his old like brother in arms, like named Adam. and they have like these two different ideologies. One wants revenge, one is like, dude, chill out. Um, and I was able to like hype up the drama because they have this connection from the past, but they have these two opposing different views that makes
Yeah.
them fight each other eventually.
Huh.
So that's kind of like how I go about my writing a little bit. I just like, what will I say in this situation, or what will this character say if he was pissed off? Like, will he just say a long like paragraph, or will he just say like "f you"? Like, I'm like, okay, maybe I could bend a little bit of the both.
Yeah. So with broken reality, and I know there's like multiple, there's different titles, there's multiple universes.
Yeah.
Where do you see now? I know and I seen a post before where you almost had like a almost like a timeline of different titles that was coming out.
Mhm.
What's the and I'm and you can elaborate however you want to. What is the, maybe not really the end result, but what are things that you're planning right now that you could sort of jump into without giving too many secrets or previews or anything like that?
No, of course. So we do have a lot of titles set for this year. The one that's coming out next is I'm actually finishing it up like today and probably tomorrow. Is Van Dorn Part One, which is a prequel to the Alpha series and the Bruniverse. Takes place in the 1800s, and it follows the story of the supernatural huntress named Elena Van Dorn, aka the Silver Dragon, and she kind of like balances the realms between like um the monsters that come from the abyss or hell, and then like the realm where everyone else lives, like humanity. So they're kind of like supernatural bounty hunters. So it's kind of like a prequel to the plot that's happening in the modern day. I know towards the summer and the fall, we have my good friend Ed. He's dropping his third volume of the Super Dragonfly Sentinels. My co-founder Griff is dropping his third issue for Legends 3. Um, Godpunk 2 is another good one. And I think towards the fall, like December, is Alexia Midnight Part Two, which is a vampire story as well. It's like another fantasy story. Um, but it's all kind of leading into, I don't know, we kind of dropped the nuggets a little bit. It's gonna all like intertwine Avengers One style.
Yeah.
I can't give away too much. I gave away that part already, like long time ago. Um, but basically we're just trying to explain the universe. So, which is a brand new concept that we created right now. It's called the Beyond. We kind of set up the store a little bit like that. So every series is connected in some way, shape, or form, whether it's directly or indirectly. So in the concept of the Beyond creatively, what we've done is there's these giant like abstract artifacts that connects different universes. We can use multiverse as an example. Um, and it's older than the elder gods that we have. It's older than the entities that create the universe that balance everything out. And no one knows how they exist. No one knows what they do. That's just our reason creatively to say if someone from a different universe wants to do a crossover, we have one way to do it, and it's consistent that it doesn't mess everyone else up. And it also gives the freedom. Let's say if someone wants to join BRC potentially, and they don't want the crossovers, they're not interested in that. They just want to do, let's say, a detective story. That's totally fine. Their stuff can stay there, and it's still like in this giant bubble of creation, but it's not affected by the stuff that we do, and their stuff doesn't affect the stuff, vice versa. So they have that freedom to do whatever they want, and it doesn't interfere. So we try to come up with a perfect scenario where if someone wants the crossovers, they can do that, whether they can join the universe directly or they can kind of like, portal hop between different multiverses. Or if they don't want it at all, they just want to stick to their own thing, we have that as well. So we kind of found a way to brainstorm with that and kind of like figure out what's the best of both scenarios.
Okay.
So that's a little bit of how we done it, and that's how we divide all the different universes together. I trying to like really like not spoil too much because there is a cool announcement coming up.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, you don't definitely don't have to spoil it. Just I know from one of your posts, like I know you're creating this expansive sort of timeline of as far as things coming up, and I know it was building up to something, but yeah, I said you can keep all that under wraps. So it's always cool to see. And I know there's so many different indie publishers and people doing doing their own thing. And with Broken Reality, I mean, I would assume, would you consider yourself like the first ones, or maybe maybe an innovator in indie publishing to where you're creating this collaborative universe, multiverse, within people that's, hey, I want to come in and, I've got my own little universe, but how can I seamlessly sort of add into yours? Or do you feel like Broken Reality is like the only one that's doing something like that?
I hope not, but I that's kind of like the point why we did it. But I feel like yeah, we're kind of like the first to do it. We did it with the Expanse one or Broken Realities one. How we rebranded it. That's what really caught attention the first time. I know my reason was I always loved Image Comics, but I've always wished like we got like an Invincible Spawn crossover that was official. I've always like wished for things like that, or like how Darkness or like Witchblade mixed with Spawn. Like I just thought it was like these guys are friends. They could have just crossed over. That would have been really cool.
Yeah.
So we just kind of were like, let's do it ourselves. That was kind of the mentality of it, and then it kind of just like snowballed into something greater. Um, yeah, I've wished it kind of sets the trend of like, okay, maybe we can set an ego aside and figure something out, and then create a bigger story that's really cool for the audience. Because
Yeah.
that's what the main goal was. It was just like to create these really big stories that are really fun to write. Because it's really fun to have a character cross over from a different series. Because it just creates so much more like different outcomes that you didn't have originally. Because that character has a backstory and they have their own lore, and you kind of have to learn how to balance it. It's super fun when we brainstorm ideas for it.
Cool. So how many times? I mean, and I know everybody's in different locations. Ha, I would assume, you sort of meet up. Like, how many times do you usually meet up, like during the week, to sort of talk about Broken Reality? I know everybody's got their own thing
Mhm.
going on, but like I didn't know how much, with so many people doing their own thing, moving pieces. Like, how do y'all make it work?
But this is the part where I guess the three co-founders fit to their strength. So I'm really good at branding and marketing,
Mhm.
so I stick with that. Griff is very good at admin stuff and just like chasing people around. So that's his job. Um, and then Arrow is really good at IT. So when it comes to anything around the site, that's his domain. Like he's the boss on that. So we just fit to our strengths, and we like kind of like did this divide and conquer type of scenario. So between the all everyone in the business aspect of it, we meet once a week, usually like every Sunday. Unless it's like a project that we have to work on, we'll try to find somewhere in the middle of the week where we can meet up.
Mhm.
That balances both our schedules because they do live in the UK, so they're 5 hours ahead of me.
Yeah.
So we have to like balance each other out. In terms of the creators, we try to meet with them as consistently as we can. I know everyone has jobs. Um, For example, I've met with Edwin, who's the creator of Alexia Midnight, Dragonfly Sentinels, and The Emerald Coyote, because we have to write the script for Emerald Coyote too. We're actually co-writing that book. We wrote the first one, it just came out. It's also available on brokenrealitycomics.com. um, so I try to talk to him at least once a week or twice a week, like, hey, how you doing? What's your schedule like for we can talk about this? So we try to do that. I want to say on a weekly basis with every creator, if not bi-weekly. And then in terms of running the business, we do that weekly. Like we have a set time every Sunday to talk what's going on, what do we need to work on, or what are some of the goals we want to hit.
All right, cool. So and I know with Broken Reality, I know you pretty much all the titles are up for people to purchase online. I didn't know if you pursued and I know with now with the climate of comic book industry, everybody's trying to sort of mitigate costs and trying to figure out different revenue channels and streams and stuff. Do you feel like the digital is working better than say if you had comics and I didn't know if you have actual comics in comic book shops or you keeping everything sort of digital. I didn't know what the pros and cons with that was, or what do you feel like is working better?
So digitals are working great. I we are looking into getting to physicals because I love physicals personally. I just like the feel of it.
Yeah.
Um, we just figure out the challenges logistically of sending them all out because there is a lot of books there. Um, so we're gonna slowly. This is actually one of the announcements I kind of wanted to say today. We're slowly like phasing into it. So we already have like, with creators' permission, of course, like are the first five or six that are ready to go physically. First six comic books ready to go physically for the site to be purchased on the site. The code of it is done. We're just figuring out everything logistically, and we're like planning things ahead
Mhm.
just to like rough out all the nicks that it might have or any potential problems that we might encounter for it can be as smooth as possible because we are our own seller at the end.
Yeah.
Um, to answer your question, um, I think the future of the industry is probably making everything online. Not in sense digital, but like selling every physical or every like merchandise items like online. I think who else does this? Ripaverse, Eric July, he does that a lot. He has everything internal, so he has it in warehouses. Um, because unfortunately, I love comic book stores, but I don't see them lasting as long as they should. Um, only because I think that's just retail in general. I think the stores are just closing out because people are shopping more online.
Yeah.
So I think that's where we have an advantage of because we have a store already. Um, but I'm just waiting for the physicals to get out. That's kind of what I've been waiting for. So what we've been doing, I've done it, a couple of other creators done it, is we just make Kickstarters for it in the meantime.
Mhm.
So Alpha 4 has physicals already set for Kickstarter, and any remaining ones, I'll probably add them to the list for the site
Oh, okay.
to sell physically.
All right. Yeah, I always, wonder about that. I mean, I know, like I said, with there's, you always see comic book stores sort of closing up, and I know I love my comic book shop. Shout out to
Same.
the Oceanside Comic Stronghold out here. So I definitely, want to see them, thrive. But I know with a lot of comic book shops, they're, closing up, and I know just more people just they're on their phones or on their tablets and things like that. It's just easier. So I know. Do you ever see it? I'm always sort of concocting all kinds of crazy ideas. Do you ever see like some kind of like metaverse of the broken reality comics, like having something where you got digital avatars of all these characters?
Oh my God. I don't know. I'm I'm young, but I feel like I'm so disconnected from that.
Yeah.
Uh, hopefully that'll be kind of cool. I don't know how to approach it honestly. But that'll be kind of cool. They just put the VR goggles and you can kind of see like a cinematic
Yeah.
comic book, like jumping from panel to panel. That'd be really cool.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm always sort of thinking ideas like that. I don't know how to execute that, but I
I
know
have no idea.
if
I'm
it
just like
does
trying to
come out,
brainstorm it too.
if it does come out, we talked about this. So
It's the designer part of ourselves. We just kind of think of something and we're like, huh, that could work.
yeah. Yeah, sometimes yeah, that can be a blessing and curse sometimes. You start coming up with too many little ideas to try to hatch, then you get yourself in trouble. I know that's happened to me a lot. Um,
That's me every meeting. I would like have this idea and I'm trying to explain it, and then the guys are just looking at me like I have three heads, and I'm like, I know what I'm saying, but like it's just not like it's not correlating with them.
yeah. So I know from your profile, I know you do I I could tell you do a lot of workouts, you exercise a lot. What kind of you said you're an athlete. What kind of sports did you do or currently doing? And with that, do you feel like your routine, your exercise routine, do you feel like that plays an important part as far as just with your creativity or just your routine in general?
Yeah, of course. I feel less stressed after a workout, which kind of correlates with me drawing a lot. I I do feel like having a strong body creates a strong mind. So it gives me more of a mental resilience just to get the work done a lot faster.
Mhm.
And to answer your first question, I played baseball growing up. I've done boxing. So I've been boxing since teenagers. I still do it currently, um, at an amateur level. So with USA Boxing, been doing that for a bit. Done a bit of football, done a bit of track. Now I'm a little older, so everything hurts a little more. So I just weightlift. I do some weightlifting, some bodybuilding, some powerlifting. That's kind of what I've been doing.
All right, cool, cool. Yeah, I was looking. I was like, yeah, I was like, you can tell. I was like, I know you work out. I was like, I just wasn't sure. Like, I know me. I'm always working out. I do a lot of like wrestling, some jujitsu, and things like that.
I've
So,
I've seen. I found this
um,
so cool because
yeah,
I have a
but
friend who's I think he wrestles for Ohio State.
nice.
And I'm like, I have such a level of respect for wrestlers because I'm like, it's so hard. I tried it
Yeah,
once. I've never been taken down so fast in my entire life. I was like,
yeah,
wow, this guy effortlessly just took me down.
yeah. It's sometimes it can be humbling. You feel like yeah, you're strong, but then until you get you got someone
So,
that might be like half your size, just like take you
it
down
just
or something
single
like that.
legs
Like
me.
it's nothing. It's like okay. But yeah, that keeps I think personally for me that keeps me resilient. I know I have a lot of different things that I have to contend with, especially running a business and building out other little things. Yeah, you need some kind of. I really feel like even all my creators they need some kind of exercise routine or something to sort of you know distress yourself, let go of the stress and perhaps use that into a more productive manner. I know sometimes where creators, once they shut down or they feel like that stress sort of hits them, it's hard to, for them to be their, most creative self. So I do urge
Yeah,
any
there's
creators to get some kind of workout routine, workout plan. I know, and I said I can't even imagine. I know with the stress level, with even like trying to come up with your book, publish it, get marketing. I know I've sort of noticed pattern wise. I've noticed a lot of comic creators dying just over the past X amount of years, and sometimes, and honestly, everybody, people can have health related, underlying issues, but sometimes it can be from stress. You're sitting down, sort of drawing. You're not getting your workout in. You're not moving. Um, Sometimes that can just build up and add up. So I sort of noticed, a lot of creators, and definitely my respects to all the ones that's passed away. But if you can find some way to sort of mitigate that and keep yourself healthy, I mean, I think people can be here for the long haul.
your body will thank you for it.
Yeah, yeah, yep. So right now, what are some things that's inspiring you right now? Some things that you wake up and like, wow, it's this is helping me to be my most creative self.
This wow, that's a really good question. Um, One is definitely when I get fan art, I get so humbled because I originally did this idea for myself. I just wanted to do a comic book. I never would have thought someone from across the world, like I just got one from like a fan from Singapore, do like this alpha doodle, and I was like, I just lost it. I was so humbled. I felt like I was gonna cry. Um, so the fact that it kind of resonates with other people and they have their own like favorite character, it's not necessarily just alpha. They have a character they resonate with. Like I have this person who messaged me like, oh, I really love Nitro a lot. That's why I love the spin-off of it. I really love Shadow, the girl, kind of resonate with my female audience. I really like Phantom, who started as a villain and be slowly turning into a hero. That resonate with them. So getting all those messages from people, or just them asking for tips or like any ideas in general, like I'm so happy to just give it because I was them like less than 3 years ago.
Mhm.
Like I was the one asking for questions. I still am. Um, I have my mentors where I'm like, okay, how can I change this and make this better? And something that I guess to wrap up your question is what really motivates me is trying to find the next level, like the next thing I can achieve. I'm always like looking for the next thing. Like, okay, so I've done comic books. I kind of want to get into 3D. So I've done a couple of 3D models already of Alpha, and eventually I want to get into animation. I want to get into video games. I want to get into movies, et cetera, et cetera. So that's kind of like the thing that keeps me going. It's just like the the long road, the big picture.
Hmm. I like that. Yeah, I think sometimes I guess really depending on, where you're at. Sometimes for my creators, it could be really easy to get online and be like, oh, I want to draw like this right now, or I want this right now. And sometimes it's baby steps. Like you have to
Yeah.
start from somewhere. Um, and then like I said, I applaud you because even I know even with my ideal, for my graphic novel, like those are characters that I was initially working on when I was little, and it's sort of fleshed out. They look completely different now. But
Yeah.
like I applaud you for having the kernel of that ideal and still fleshing it out, because it's really easy to just like sort of stop and you know people say you can't do it, or you feel like life happens and you feel like you got to put it on the shelf. But I applaud you for you keep staying forward with it and keeping it going and actually bringing it out to fruition. So I do believe that everyone that's sort of in this creative game, or they have these ideals. You get those ideals, you're inspired for a reason. Like you get those ideals, or maybe something that's meant for you to like flesh out. I do urge anyone to, like, if you've got those ideals, you need to figure out some way to get that out, put it on paper, on computer, it doesn't matter, but figure out ways of getting that out, and putting that out in the world. Because like I said, you don't know you know, who could, what you putting out alpha. I mean, you've got, people from all over the world, being inspired by that. And, you be inspiring the next, generation of creators because they saw alpha, or they saw, some of the other characters from the broken reality universe. So I think that's really, you know, really inspiring, to see you doing your thing and fleshing it out. Because I know a lot of people that had ideals for different things, they stopped. So you just kept it going. So I applaud you.
Thank you. One thing I want to say to the audience, which I've had to like really learn throughout the years, 'cause I was very tunnel vision for a very long time. I guess this is coming as I age a little bit. You gotta enjoy the journey. Sometimes we see something on Instagram and we want to, for example, a drawing like how you said, and we want to like copy it. We want to make it look like that. We want to make it look really cool, and it doesn't come out like that. And sometimes they hurt us, and we are very like disappointed. We're very like we get a bit like self-conscious about it.
Mhm.
I still do it to this day. But we sometimes have to like reflect a little bit and just enjoy the journey of how far you got so far. Sometimes taking that little moment of appreciation, like, hey, I started here. This is where I am now. I'm not where I want to be yet, but I'm proud that I made it this far.
Yeah,
You know, it's the little steps that compound at the end that gives you the goal that you're looking for.
yeah, yeah. I like that. I think people don't realize that it's life can be one crazy little, just messy mosaic, and until you step back and you're like, wait a minute, I've done all this stuff, even though I didn't, initially at eye level, like I don't know where it's going to go. But when you step back years later, I'm like, wow, I can't believe I actually created this or done this. I mean, um, yeah, it's wild. It's amazing. It's just one of those. I think, I think a lot of people tell us, hey, you got to enjoy the journey, and and for a lot of people, it could be hard to be like I want this now, like I don't want. But
That's me. I
yeah,
think that's where fitness comes into it a little bit because um doing boxing or doing wrestling or just lifting weights, you lose a lot before you win, before you
yes,
start seeing the results. Like there was I forgot what quote it was. I came across of it. It was like you're the last person to notice the results. It's usually like, some acquaintances realize it first, then some friends, then family, then you see it at the very end. It was like a gym quote. Um, and that's the same thing I feel like for anything that you pursue, even in comics, like it almost starts off with you losing and then you gotta have to play catch up and then just learn as you go. But once you pass that hurdle, man, it's so worth it. Like you just look back and realize, wow, I did all of this. Like
yeah,
so for me, like I've done already 9 books. four alpha books, two spin-offs, and two crossovers. That's about like 300 pages of drawings. Me looking that in the beginning, I would have been very intimidated. Like, man, I have to draw 300 pages. Wait, what? Some of them are like 8 panels, 11 panels. Like, you can do the math there. Um, but I've always thought of it, okay, what's the next thing? Okay, let me finish this next page. Next, then the next thing, next, then the next thing, next. Like, have a big picture, but have small goals in between. And having that benchmark of crossing that small goal motivates you so much more to get farther.
Yeah, that's awesome. So we'll go down, we'll go into creative tips, and you pretty much had told us some tips. They're really amazing tips. What is a creative tip or tips for our audience?
One creative tip I would say is just oh, signal. Okay. Just go for it. If you're scared of doing something, do it anyway. Embrace being uncomfortable because that's where the growth is at. So, as an example, let's say you're not good at writing. Just start practicing writing a little more. Do a little bit of research, but then apply it, right? And share it. Share it to others, share it to people, because that's where you get your feedback. Um, you won't grow unless you're going into the uncharted waters, right? The uncharted territory. That's where you learn a lot. In terms of artwork, repetition is, I guess, the best advice I can give. Just doing things over and over and over again, like how we call it in the gym, progressive overload. um, doing the small things, getting a little bit better every day, practicing your anatomy a little bit more, learn the fundamentals because they come a long way. Learn from the people that paved the road for us. Like if you have any favorite artists, study them. Like I have like five McFarlane books. I just study Jim Lee books as well. I just look at them and then I try to like copy it. Does it come out exactly like them? Absolutely not. But I there's usually like little tips in the books and then I can apply it and then I can take it and bring it somewhere where I might need it down the road. So study a lot, apply a lot, practice a lot, I guess will be the biggest three tips I will give.
Great tips,
Be the
great
hardest
tips.
worker.
Great tips. Like I said, I was inspired by Jim Lee. Jim Lee is probably definitely my top three. I've always my style has been really it's been hyper realistic. I'm a '90s kid anyway, so '80s '90s kid. So I always loved Jim Lee, John Byrne, with his X-Men
Ooh,
run.
I love that.
Loved him. And then I think I got into that '90s. I was a McFarlane fan. Like when he came out, with his Spider-Man run, I was like, this is amazing. Um, so
He kind of came out with the same cloth that you and me did. He was a designer first.
yeah, yeah. So he came in with a different, I think that helped him out because he came with a different mindset coming in,
Yeah.
which even transitioning from comics and going into, with him toys and everything else. Um, I think his mind was completely different, perspective wise, and I think that helps with even with designers. 'Cause I know there's a lot of I know more graphic designers are starting to slowly but surely start to going into the comic books and things like that, but they're coming in. And I know, matter of fact, shout out to there's one guy um, that and I forgot his name. I'm gonna hate it too. But he did he helped out with did the design work for the X-Men run, the with the Croakian era. I think it's Jay Moeller or something like that. But I love his design work. He does a lot of logos for different publishers, and just even the design elements and things that he did dramatically sort of changed, layouts and like how everything was perceived, comic book wise. I just liked a lot of the little elements that he put in there in that X-Men run. But I do see like a lot more graphic designers slowly getting in there, but they come with their own. They've got their own perspective. And with you, like I said, you're uh, especially you've been a sort of an entrepreneur and designer and an athlete. You're merging all these different things. To your advantage. You're able to connect the dots on so many different things, what makes it advantageous to you. But so yeah, it's I think that's one of those where I know it inspires me because especially like okay, he's doing his thing. I was like, not to say I'm still definitely running my business, but I am wanting to go into more of the comic book spectrum and wanting to sort of put out those characters. So it definitely gives me inspiration to sort of see what you're doing. And I'm like, okay, I'm not the best, definitely not the best writer or anything else like that, but I do have a, specific, you know, thing that I know I can bring to the table and just sort of figuring out how to get it out there. But it always refreshing to see someone like you doing your thing, putting it out there and doing the marketing. And so it's sort of weird because I was like, I could do marketing and branding. But it's like if you tell me to sit down and like, hey, write some pages, I was like, I don't know.
That's
So
honestly me sometimes too. When we write the crossovers or we write like the lore, I'm like just pitching ideas, but I'm not the one writing them down. It's usually like my other business partner. He's just like he's more of the technical. He likes the little details.
yeah.
I'm just like the big picture abstract guy. Like, oh, we should have this guy go through a building right here. Like this would be so cool to draw. Like that's how I see things. So I can relate. But yeah, go for it. Like this community on Instagram for comic books in general is so warming. I was very intimidated at first when I first started. That's why I didn't share as much as I did now. But you slowly realize like, wow, like there's a lot of nice people out here and they're willing to just give you tips if you just ask them that are like at a way higher level than me. And sometimes I just send a DM and I'm like, hey, how do you do this, this, and that? And then they write me paragraphs of answer and I'm like super grateful for it.
Oh, right. That's awesome. That's awesome. So before we sign off, what are some words of wisdom? Something that may resonate with the hearts and minds of our audience and everyone that's listening or will listen. What are some words of wisdom that you can give someone?
Hmm. That's a good question. I guess something that really resonated with me this past year is enjoy the journey, uh, and don't quit because you don't know when something's gonna come right, uh, come out your way, right? Like this is weird thing about like just life in general. Like sometimes we pass through the really roughest patches of life and we get through this hurdle, and then after that, like really great things happen. So it's just about getting through that rough patch, work really hard, stay dedicated, stay disciplined, and enjoy the journey. And then you just see the result at the end. Um, I've yet to see someone who has not worked very hard not get what they want. You know, just gotta stay disciplined, stay motivated, stay inspired. Be great to everybody, be polite, just live life to the fullest. I think that's the biggest idea. I mean, the biggest words of wisdom I've been kind of like living this past year.
Yeah,
Enjoy the journey.
that's great. And then how can people get in contact with you? People that want to purchase some alpha books, or get in contact with you, maybe maybe trying to pitch their ideals or anything sort of related to the comic book spectrum. Or matter of fact, hey, like I said, I know you're in design work. Maybe someone's needing a design project done. How can people reach out to you?
So I'm on Instagram at Sketchpad by JM. That's usually the one I've used the most. I'm mostly on Instagram. If you want to purchase Alpha Books or any of our creators' books on Broken Reality Comics, it is brokenrealitycomics.com. There is a dash between Broken Reality and Comics, or you could visit Broken Reality Comics on Instagram. The link is right there. If you're interested in submitting your comic book to be published by us, we do have a submission form on our site as well. It is on the top nav bar. It would just say submission. There's a list of requirements that was really written out by our legal team and by our creative team. So it's super simple to apply and send your pitch. In terms of my design as well, Instagram, that's where I'm at usually. I pretty much live on the app at this point. um, yeah, Sketchpad by JM. You can hit me up for design. You can hit me up for comic books or just have a conversation.
All
I
right.
reply pretty quick.
Nice, nice. Well, Jay, thank you for being on the show. Appreciate it. Like I said, it's great conversation. A lot of great information. Definitely talking about Broken Reality Comics, talking about Alpha, just talking about just getting in the game altogether. I know for my audience, there's a lot of people that, hey, you're stuck on an ideal. Well, Jay's probably gonna give you some inspiration and some really some practical tips on maybe fleshing out your ideal and getting it out there. Especially for a lot of my people that's interested, like me, getting into the comic books. This is a great episode for you. So, Jay, thank you. And then, hey, check out Broken Reality Comics at broken-reality-comics.com. Please check that out. If you don't put in the dashes, you're probably gonna have a broken link. If
Yeah.
you, please,
Or you can
broken.
write it on Google.
Yeah, no.
That's
So
what I do sometimes.
broken-reality-comics.com. So check that out. But hey, this is the Creative Brew with me, with Jay. Be creative, stay inspired.